Welcome to another episode of the Pedestrian Podcast. This week we'll be previewing the Seahawks game against the Green Bay Packers, which has got the Nance and Romo treatment. It's myself, Stuart Court, and as ever, Mr. Adam Nathan. How are we, sir?
Not too bad. It was a nice, relaxing Sunday without any Seahawk games to stress about. But in true fashion, they've all given something, especially me, to freak out about in the last few days. So no shortage of content, Mr. Stewart.
No. So Seahawks won by. Not a lot happened with current Seahawks players, like rostered Seahawks players, but it was the ones which we could add to the equation, which took up most of the conversation, the discourse, as they say in the game. Odell Beckham Jr. was released by the Cleveland Browns. Might as well just dive straight into it because I think that's the main talking point. The Seahawks did, along with 31 of the teams, didn't claim him. The Seahawks have $13 million in cap space. The Seahawks have question marks over DS Critch. As we speak, really. He's been cleared to practice, but obviously practice is a weird, like, Bermuda Triangle for Seahawks players, it seems, this season. And as we record, it looks like his agent or someone is trying to drive the price up for the Packers to pay to add him to Karen Rogers, as someone obviously the nickname of the weekend, and the Green Bay Packers and the Seahawks are just sitting on their decision makers are sitting on their collective hands, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to talk about with this. The first thing to sort of dispel is there was like this thing of people saying, well, no one claimed him. So are all 31 teams wrong? I think 25 of them didn't even have the money to claim him. So you can just cast that out straight away because they physically couldn't do it, without going over the salary cap, which in the middle of the season, when it's a number like this, is pretty hard and fast. You can't go over. The other six, I don't think any of them, the ones that could afford him, are even close to sort of this contention idea. And it's just the idea that, like, if you have the opportunity to get someone like this, why enter in a position of where you make it a competition, which is really what the Seahawks have done. And we know what will happen. He'll sign somewhere else, and there'll be press conferences of Pete Carroll saying, "Hey, we tried really hard on that one, just couldn't quite get it done. Just couldn't quite get it done." And there's a bit of a pushback about Odell Beckham, asking not to be claimed, but he is in no position really to have a second half of the season like his first half, or maybe even last year and a half, really, because if he bombs out again, he's not going to get anything like the contract he wants from 2022 onwards. So this idea that Beckham asked not to be claimed, like, cool, but you have no leverage really in the situation. And if Russell Wilson, it ends up being your quarterback for a second half of the season, when you can be a third receiver, at worst third receiver in a playoff contender, like, that's a really good situation for him to be in. So I don't even think he would have, like, not turned up or pouted. Like, it would have been a great situation for him to get. And yeah, I'm pretty pissed off because I don't see what there was to lose, really.
I don't really mind the fact that no one claimed him is clearly like a agent powered thing. I don't think it's Odell saying, no, I want to do it my way kind of thing. I literally think the agent's gone, look, get your offers ready, but can, like, it's like a weird concerted, like, collusion, basically.
That doesn't happen in the NFL, Stu.
No,
that's not a thing that NFL teams ever do. Collude to not pick up a player. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, but it's but the fact that it is it's now 25 hours after he was free, like, legitimately someone that could go out and sign. And like I said, it just sounds like it's Seahawks Patriots are being used probably by that same agent via Jordan Schultz to drive up the price for the Saints or the Packers to pay, and the Seahawks are just going to sit idly by with D'Estridge and all of the question marks in the world. So I think, it's just annoying because this was a chance. I think you maybe tweeted, it was maybe Rob. This is a chance for Seahawks to quieten people. We've been pretty critical of the team for the last 6 weeks. You probably more so consistently than me. This is a chance to allay some fears, if that's maybe a bit dramatic, but this is a chance for the PR to spin around positively and people to stop talking about what's hiding in the shadows of postseason, off-season, when Russell Wilson goes back on the Dan Patrick show. This was the chance, and again, just sat idly by and as we record, not doing anything.
Exactly. I mean, you're in a position now where the situation with the quarterback is clearly fractured. They seemingly need to invest in him in some capacity, and this would just seem like a really easy way to do it. And I get all the counter arguments. Maybe he's not as good a player or whatever, but you're just going to die not trying at this stage. We were told at the start of the season that NFC Championship game or bust was the target. And now we're at this point, just you might need that $9 million to roll over next year for next year's Luke Jokel. And it's just a bit frustrating because, as we said last week on the show, it's just got a bit stale and boring. And that's even worse than being bad. It's boring. And that's just a bit frustrating.
It's not I think like you just said, Odell might not pan out. He could just be just a body. But you've got the chance in a season where the NFC does not look like it's going to have, maybe Brady could go and win the next 10 games, but it looks like it's going to be a scramble for that 6-7 spot in the playoffs. The Seahawks have got a chance. They're in the conversation. Obviously, a win is massive for that on Sunday, but Odell Beckham Jr. is on the street in November. He's not injured, but as far as we know, he hasn't got any legal issues or lingering suspension, because this is a fan base. This is a team which basically babysat Josh Gordon for 2 years.
Yeah. Every time he's become available, people have been pining for his signing. And not because he's cheap, just because there's a potential talent there.
Yeah. And the talent at that, Josh Gordon did it for what? Half a season in Cleveland before off-field stuff got in the way. Odell Beckham Jr. was probably the best receiver in the league for 2.5 seasons. He changed how NBC broadcasts games because they just talk about it constantly. Yeah. But it doesn't add up. And it's just annoying. If one of the 9 teams ahead of the Seahawks claimed him on Tuesday, fine.
No problem.
Because then they could really say, well, we were. And that's what it sounded like was going to happen when Pete spoke on Monday. It sounded like they were in that hunt. But then in the 22 hours from that to 4:00 Eastern time yesterday, nope, nothing happened. And in the 24 hours since that, nothing's happened. So it's just, it's just going to be annoying when we see the Jacino Anderson tweet saying he's signed for the Packers.
Yeah, Pete was really coy and
Pete was Pete
and wry on Monday.
Yeah,
which I don't think the 2021 version of Pete Carroll and this roster can be wry and benefit of the doubt, because that benefit of the doubt has dissipated from where it was.
Oh yeah, sorry. I thought you were carrying. I thought it was a longer point. Sorry.
No.
No, it is. It's just, it is just. It kind of, they're giving themselves less wiggle room. The people who are kind of maybe on the fence, obviously, I think this pod has shown that we're probably not on the fence with what happens in the off season. This is going to get some people on the negative side of the fence, on the like this is done, just start again kind of thing. And then today, Pete was asked by it and then gave the Matt LaFleur response of he's not a player, it's not our player, someone to talk about it. But it's just, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're about to be joined by a guest, and so, carrying the conversation there. So I don't want to give out all of the points. But yeah, I mean, the benefit of the doubt idea, that doesn't really wash this season. Like this was the season that it had to happen, because we all know that there's going to be a serious issue with Wilson in the offseason if it doesn't. And it just feels like such an easy win just to help that problem.
Yeah.
And they're just not taking it. And it's just frustrating.
Yeah, it can appease so many people, and it costs $1.5 million, if that. I mean, they're on about not more than over 9 million, but they've done all these void year contracts this offseason. Why, if you've got this opportunity and you're gonna, it appears, for the most part, just sit on your hands and wait for the soundbite on Sunday morning before the Packers game.
Yeah, I mean, someone said to me on social media today that, if they'd violated what his agent wanted, then it could have messed up their plans for 2022 with keeping Odell Beckham. I don't give a fuck about 2022 right now. Like, we're in a win now situation, I'm told. So can we try and win now?
Yeah, I mean, if this offseason proved anything, it's that the Seahawks don't have budding relationships with important agents of players. So, I mean, maybe that's why they took me. Did they share? No, they wouldn't share an agent in the Facebook page. Maybe that's why. Maybe they're just no, because that'd be the opposite. Because if you tie their agents, you don't listen to agents, so you just go and put a claim in for it. I don't get it. The claiming thing, I was kind of okay, but at 4:00 Eastern time yesterday, Odell Beckham should have been paid a lot of money. I mean, do you have a limit on how much you pay for 10 weeks of OBJ?
Well, I mean, I was happy to pay 7.25 million.
Okay.
Because I wanted to claim him. So I guess that's my limit.
I mean, I don't understand the legalese of it, but is there a chance that he's like asked teams not to claim him so he does over Cleveland for more money? Do they still owe him money if he signs elsewhere? Or
I think that is what's happened, but there was negotiations with his clause, but it just doesn't. I get the idea that his agent might say, look, don't claim him. But also I get the point that Seattle would say, no, we're claiming you. Thank you very much. See you on Thursday.
Yeah. It's like this weekend, you're a Spurs fan, as everyone is fully aware.
I know.
Yeah. If Conte went, I've just got into the club and I don't want Harry to play more than 100 minutes, and Southgate played him 145, that would not go down well if that leaked for your fan base or Kane's availability for the next 6 months or however long Kane is at Spurs with Conte, would it? This is basically the same thing, isn't it? Because if a manager on FM, if you ask a player to not play for the international team, they go in a huff. Yeah, I don't really know what my point is with that. I'm just...
No, I think you got that the wrong way around, but I enjoyed it all the same.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
It's always nice to talk about Don Antonio.
We'll get back on to Odell Beckham when our guest joins us a bit later. Any other... I mean, Chris Carson's been cleared today for practice. Pete Carroll said Diaz-Bridge is full go. Russell Wilson is full go ahead of Sunday. And Trey Brown and DJ Reed are the starting cornerbacks moving forward. Anything else for Seahawks land, or have you just been in a OBJ fog for the last 4 days?
I do absolutely love the drama surrounding Russell Wilson's finger injury. That, like, this idea that he's literally come back from anything, that has made me laugh.
Yeah, I mean, he's been out for 3 weeks, and his video looks like he's come back from Alex Smith's leg injury.
You've probably caught the end of that, Stacy. We're just poking a bit of fun at our King Dork, Russell Wilson.
Oh no.
A
It's pretty
bit.
easy to do. It's pretty
I
easy to
mean,
do.
as Stuart said, he is prancing around like he's come back from an Alex Smith level injury with the videos. Like it's a finger. Like,
It's 3 weeks.
yeah.
It's very on brand. It's very Russell Wilson. It's right. It's a production. It's like, okay, let me remind you guys. And then you got the shot of Lambeau reminding us that he's playing in Green Bay.
Well, I mean, as I said last week, I've seen the other side of the coin now, and I want no part of it. So, whereas I would have taken like 3 or 4 first round picks last year, I wouldn't take 30 or 40 first round picks ever again for Russell Wilson. I am forever grateful. He is my leader, and I want no part of anyone else to ever throw the ball for Seattle Seahawks ever again.
Now, is that because of the failures with other first rounders you've seen, or is it just seeing this offense without him?
Good question. So it's twofold. Firstly, it's that. Secondly, as I said with Jackson or Rob, whoever's on with us last week, we stay up till like 5 a.m. on a semi-regular basis to watch this team play. And when that ceases to be fun, the idea of doing that becomes so sickening that it's just depressing beyond whatever. And when I see Matt Rule is probably going to want to get rid of Sam Darnold, and the idea that I'm sure that Pete Carroll thinks there's a guy I can turn around. I'm not staying up till 5 o'clock to watch Sam Darnold play for the Seahawks.
No.
It was bad enough with Geno Smith when at least I knew that was temporary. But I don't want Teddy Bridgewater or Sam Darnold or, hey, Colt McCoy, maybe he can do it. I want no part of it. So it's twofold.
What would you take?
I would say, go ahead.
Would you take Zach Wilson?
No, I would not take Zach Wilson. I'd rather have Owen Wilson than Zach Wilson.
We'll put together an amazing team, though.
That's true.
That's also impacted my thing, too, is it's not just seeing the offense without Wilson. It's also seeing how many failed first rounders specifically this year are kind of making the rounds, right? There's Darnold. You've seen Wentz being traded. Goff gets traded. Like you've seen all these guys where their team thought they'd found their guy and it wasn't.
Yeah, it's nearly Thanksgiving and Jared Goff has not won a game without Sean McVay as his head coach. It's my favorite stat I've seen this season. He's Owens 15.
Yeah, without
Sean McVay as head coach, but yeah.
Well, Stacy, we had like a thrilling OBJ conversation just now, and I'm raging. I'm furious. Like,
what are you furious about?
Because again, it sort of links to that excitement thing. And Stuart and I said, if any of the 8 teams ahead of the Seahawks claimed him, fine. But the money is there. The position on the roster, I would say, is there. We were told in the summer that this was NFC Championship game or bust season. And I'm frustrated because I'm starting to wonder, half the time the Seahawks act like there's a long-term vision, and the other half the time they act like everything is win now, short term. And if I kind of look at that as an overall pie, I think it's pretty much win now or they're knackered because of the stuff that could happen. And for me, like, why not try? That there's so little to lose to do it. And look, they didn't claim him, fine, but to not have it when he signs for the Chiefs and Pete Carroll's like, yeah, we tried really hard, but couldn't quite get it done. I mean, I'm going to be apoplectic.
No, it's a fantastic point. I like the way you've described just their own outlook feeling like 2 different teams sometimes, because that is how it feels. Sometimes you feel like there's a long-term vision, not just with Schneider's extension, but the focus on young guys, the focus on, leaning toward the future. And in theory, having Wilson for part of that, we're not guaranteed Wilson's going to be here next year. Honestly, like if this team is horrible, I don't think he'll be here next year. You also wonder, like, eventually it's the hill is going to turn the other way for Bobby Wagner, who's going to be into his 30s, and every great player eventually declines. It just happens. And not only that, but your best players that can get you to a Super Bowl are at their best right now. And a lot of the young players you've had have not shown yet that they can take you there. So yeah, I feel the same way. And I've been surprised to see how many people, and it's small sample size. It's like message boards or comments and text that we get, right? So it's a very specific audience, but I've still been surprised to see how many people are like, absolutely not, nothing to do with Odell. I don't want him on this team. He'll hurt the team. And the excuses, I use that word, are always, he's a locker room cancer. And it's like, well, then cut him. Like they're going to be paying him less than that $7 million now that he's cleared waivers. So get rid of him if you don't want him there. And secondly, that they already have wide receivers. And it's like, God forbid you get more of a good thing. Like, God forbid. I mean, I'm sure the Chiefs are looking at the situation going, you know what? We have Tyreek. we've got this great tight end with Travis Kelce. We're good. No, you want more weapons. The more decisions a defense has to make, the better.
I mean, if Seahawks fans got their way, Josh Gordon would be here. Like, he's the comparison. And like, there is no
Antonio
difference. Brown. Antonio Brown would be here.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between that one, but there's no, like Russell Wilson said when he first spoke after the offseason, whatever that was, that the way to solve everything is by winning. That solves everything. OBJ on paper gives the Seahawks, as they appear, the best chance of doing that for the next 10 weeks. If that costs $7.5 million or $800,000 for the next 10 weeks, and it, like you said, doesn't work at $800,000. It's $800,000. They paid that for 4 weeks of Sean Mannion. So it's like...
God. They also like, they don't have anyone else, right? It's not like you're choosing between Odell Beckham Jr. and or do you sign Stephon Gilmore, or do you pick up this great defensive end off the waiver wire instead of him? Like, it's Odell Beckham Jr. or presumably no one. I don't know who you think you're going to find that you would rather have instead of him. If I had my pick of positions I would fill before wide receiver, I, like any other Seahawks fan, would choose a couple positions before that. I'd love to see a really healthy, effective running back out there. Obviously, a great, effective edge rusher. I even take a shutdown corner, clearly. Those guys are not available right now. They rarely become available midseason, much less post-trade deadline. I don't know what people think they're saving for.
But
like, this isn't going to be like a rollover minutes situation.
Yeah, but also, if they save cap, we're not getting any of that money. Like, it's not like
your money.
Like a tote thing.
Free tickets for everyone. It's great.
Like, exactly. Have like as Adam said, just have a bit of fun. But also, like, the Eskridge has come up a lot with why we don't need, but his like health and whatever's happened he's gone through for the last 6 weeks is kind of, it seems precarious. And the same, like, people say, Chris Carson's back this week, Russell Wilson's back. Chris Carson seems precarious. Like, Pete didn't seem to really commit to him being back on Sunday either. So, like, the reasons to not add OBJ are valid because it's Carson and Wilson and the first draft pick they made this offseason. But everything is precarious. And the biggest thing that is precarious is the relationship with the quarterback. And this, you'd expect, would help that.
Yeah, I think people get this narrative in their head. I feel like a lot of the time, and I'm sure you guys see this, you see recycled arguments for and against things you might like. And I think that happens when people don't want to think their team needs help, or when people have a perception of a player in a locker room. For instance, the one about Odell Beckham Jr. being a problem. I can understand why people have that perception and understand why you'd be worried it would hurt a locker room. I'm less worried about that hurting Seattle's locker room than I am some other locker rooms. But then, you know, I think that there is this narrative that you keep alive about your own team where it's like, no, they're going to be fine. They're getting these guys back and they're going to be fine. And then this will be okay. And it's like, Seahawks fans have seen a team win for so long and make it work despite so many bad decisions, sometimes great decisions, but some bad decisions, that I think that there's this idea that it'll just work out. Like, trust the process.
Yeah. Then if you have these, Stacy, but outside like corner shops in the UK, which is like a very small convenience store, they have these like charity things, and you put a coin in, and Stu, you probably know what I mean. You know, when it goes around and around and around, and it gets closer and closer and closer and closer to the hole, and like, it's going to drop, and it doesn't drop. It's going to drop. It doesn't drop. Pete Carroll got to the hole last week when he said, if Russell Wilson wasn't here, I probably wouldn't still be here. I was like, Yes, Pete, you worked it out. It's all about him. So we need to do everything for him, because then everything will be fine and you'll be fine. And this just felt like such a good opportunity to just back the main guy, and they're going to spurn it. And it just leaves me, I don't know, my coin's just going to hit the bottom now. And I just feel really deflated that I'm not having the fun with it. And I'm not having fun with the team this year. We've discussed this at length. I don't know what it is. We're just not, this podcast kind of view is that we're just quite bored and not having fun, quite looking forward to a regime change. But at least that could have been like, I don't want to say a shot of life because that's way too political at this stage, but it could have been like an injection of some life and some spirit into the lot. Like Stu and I are coming over for the 49ers game. I want to buy a Beckham jersey. I want to see him play for Seattle. Yeah. It's selfish, but I want that. I want Sunday to be looking forward to it, because I'm not looking forward to any game. And I just want it and I feel maybe that's not the case with fans in Seattle when it's more local and it's less of like a special thing. It's more just normalized, but everything's like an event. Yeah. For us, as you say, and I just want to like believe in something again, because I'm just finding it so flat.
Well, and especially if you don't think, I think what I'm hearing too is, especially to someone like you, who's like, hey, I want to see this decision made and this decision made. There's also implications to the decisions not being made. So it's like, I don't want to believe in this team's chances more than you do, head coach. Mm-hmm. Like, I want you guys to make moves that show me. That's what Jake talks about a lot, is like that the desire to win and be competitive should translate into taking chances that a lot of teams have kind of been coached, and I mean this in like a front office way, for decades to avoid. Like draft picks, early round and first round picks have always been the most valuable thing you can have. And you know what I mean? There's a reason there are fewer trades overall in the NFL than in some other leagues. And it's like, it's just in general, even though we've seen blockbuster moves from Seattle, kind of a risk averse league, right? Like the stats about fourth down attempts, and you don't see the league following that kind of thing. Like it is just, it is a risk averse is the word I keep coming back to. But, and so I think that Seattle, it's not that they need to make big moves for the sake of making big risky moves to prove they want to win. But when there's something that obviously makes you better, I don't understand what the risk is. Like, I don't understand what the drawback is of bringing in Beckham, other than maybe there's a personality that you don't like. And again, because he's a free agent, you're giving him a new contract. What's that cost you? A veteran minimum salary? You know, it's fiscally not irresponsible. And if it messes up in a social or team building aspect, it's very easy to get rid of him. He's not a guy that would cause a lot of ruckus from fans if you cut him. So I don't understand the hesitation here, I guess.
No, but also this is outwardly, like from what we saw, this is the same kind of thing that started everything with Russell Wilson gazing elsewhere around the NFL, is because when he didn't sign Antonio Brown 18 months ago, then he went to be such a focal point of that Super Bowl run, Super Bowl win for the Buccaneers, and that kind of set that, again, publicly set that ball rolling for how we are kind of sat on a precipice of, it's just, it's mind-boggling how open a goal it is, and they're just kind of, they're taking the Jamie Tart extra pass kind of thing instead of just like
Jamie change.
Spoiler, Adam, but
is that Ted Lasso joke?
It's a Ted Lasso reference. You joined us halfway through. How are we, Stacy?
Good. It's funny having this same conversation. I do like the conversation, and it's fascinating hearing your guys' perspectives on it, because it's so different than the combating perspective I normally see. And while I respect people's opinions, I think there's a little bit of a Russell Wilson, an antagonistic approach to Russell Wilson. And sometimes I wonder, I don't know if I'm phrasing this in a way that isn't offensive. Sometimes
no one listens, don't worry.
It's fine.
Sometimes I wonder if there's an expectation of specifically in the NFL of a likable player in the States from an American audience that is different from a British audience. Like I feel like people, maybe this is just outside of Seattle, but I feel like people outside of Seattle are completely fine with the fact that like they don't have to love Russell Wilson and everything he does to be able to acknowledge very plainly that he's incredibly talented and a rare type of player. And I feel like in Seattle, what I see is this idea that like you don't like him as a person. Maybe you think he's like a celebrity, or you think that I don't know, on all the time. There's a lot of like hateful rhetoric. And I don't know if it's people being just tired of winning and like they don't realize what they have, or if it's this idea from this particular audience that like being hardworking and quiet is somehow more appealing than, right? Like I had someone say like, I wouldn't want to get a beer with him. And I was like, he's not getting a beer with you. What you think Russell Wilson's like heading down to the Ram or something? Like he's not it. So I've been wondering whether just the kind of celebrity people embrace or accept is different here than elsewhere.
It was the same as Sherman though, wasn't it? Because he was so vocal and vociferous in some aspects against the quarterback. The kind of people, yeah, get rid of him. So when he was an option this offseason or a month ago, it was like, no. The same thing for Odell was what was being used against Richard Sherman. And then within 2 weeks, he's calling and coaching DBs in Tampa because he's injured. It just seems the same, Adam.
Well, I mean, we had a great time in the offseason finding the pictures of Russell and Sierra in Venice and slaying him for them because they were hilarious.
Yeah,
but I think we found it pretty easy to separate person from player. It helps that he's objectively a sensational person. Anyone that goes to a children's hospital every Tuesday is clearly a terrific person. And I think with that, you're able to have fun poking fun at a guy because you know that you're not going to be digging into anything that's like below the surface that could be nefarious, or you don't need to worry about going into bat for a guy because he's clearly a good guy. But on the flip side, he's still a massive weirdo, but he's our weirdo, and that's fine.
And it's fine. I'm not. If you want to hate Russell Wilson as a person because you think he's fake, or you think that he has an ego, or his ego's too big and his sense of self-worth is too much, I would much rather have that than someone who is legitimately like has committed crimes and is a horrible person. Yeah. Like I feel like that is less offensive to me. So a football player has an ego. Oh my God.
It might have been even you that we just discussed it with last year, but do you know anyone that listened to his podcast ever?
No.
And like
Russell Wilson's podcast?
Yeah.
No.
He had a podcast with like huge superstars and no one listened. And you'd think like if any quarterback, like franchise guy, like if Drew Brees had a podcast, like everyone in New Orleans would listen to that. But like no one did because I think I said, he's tried so hard to curate a brand that he almost has no brand because he's kind of become such a saccharine thing that there's nothing to hang your hat on. But like, if that's the worst thing about my quarterback, like, cool, I'll take it.
Yeah. No, that's a perfect way to say it, because that is kind of what it's become. Is like, I think there's this feeling of who's the real Russell, and it's like, I mean, it doesn't sound like he's an awful person. So if the real Russell isn't someone I can live with that.
Yeah. I mean, about a week ago, no one really knew much about Aaron Rodgers, and then the window broke. So maybe being on this side of the aisle is not a bad place to be. So what's your take been on the 7-8 weeks of this season? Because it was a slog.
Yeah,
3 back-to-back primetime games with Geno Smith at quarterback.
I'll never forgive them. I'll never forgive them for that.
The fact that Pittsburgh game wasn't flexed is just
painful. Yeah, it's I think there were some reservations heading into the season, both with myself, with reporters that I spoke with, that there were just still a lot of important question marks. Like throughout training camp, you never saw, for instance, a cornerback stand out. Guys would occasionally make plays. I think Akella Witherspoon had like a pick one day. So you'd get that kind of standard stuff. But I don't think at any point you left training camp. And these are the same reporters who saw that position group at its best with the Legion of Boom. You didn't leave training camp feeling like they had an answer there. And it became apparent very early that they did not. So those kinds of things, like the cornerback battle, you knew that they'd be dealing with. But like what I didn't necessarily expect is a defensive line and a pass rush that was just so I don't even want to say inconsistent, because while they've gotten to the quarterback at times, they are not like a top unit or even a top 15 unit. And like they're not getting great pressures on. They're kind of middle of the road in pressures and quarterback knockdowns and hits and hurries. And then in actually completing those and getting sacks, they're right at the bottom of the league with like 2 teams below them. So I think it's been disappointing to see defensive problems persist. And if your defense is struggling, your offense cannot also struggle. And despite everything we were hearing about Shane Waldron, his offense being up tempo, really focusing on third down, you just haven't seen it. And it's really hard to tell whether that's because they don't have Wilson right now and Carson has been injured, or because they're still working out a lot of issues with it.
Yeah. And then
defensively, sorry, Stu.
Go on.
Well, defensively, I said over the offseason, like Pete Carroll could go wash his hands right now and forget more about football than I'll ever know in my entire life. And yet an idiot like me could see there were problems in the secondary and linebackers like from March onwards. So, you mean you guys speak to him on the station and you have good access to him. If you could like give him a truth serum or kind of work out like why did you think this would work when idiot Adam 5,000 miles away could see it probably wasn't going to work? Like, why? Yeah.
I think Pete Carroll is an incredibly, and I don't mean this as an offensively, but an incredibly stubborn person in a way that a lot of head coaches have to be. I think that when you get into that environment where you have to create a culture built around your idea and your philosophy on and off the field, a lot of being successful means sticking to that. And the problem is when the rest of the league changes around you, or when you get different people in the building. And I think that one of the cardinal sins to Pete Carroll is not knowing who you are and then forgetting yourself and your principles along the way. And in my opinion, that isn't something that has to apply to the way you use personnel. You can have basic philosophical principles. We protect the football. We stop the run. We're aggressive on defense. We're great on special teams. And also tailor your approach to the weapons you have. And in my opinion, he has not done a good enough job of doing that, even though he's been stellar with some of the other things like building a culture and getting people to buy in.
Yeah. I mean, he said for most of Bruce Irvin's first time in Seattle that we just going to put him in the positions where he does what he does best. I think for them, he got Bruce paid, so it clearly worked. But he's, like, as you say, seems to have gone away from that, particularly this year with the players he's got at his disposal.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously, we're not beholden to anyone. So I think we probably had a view that it might be time for a change at the end of this year, just to see. Because at this point, I kind of feel like we're a bit of a Jeff Fisher's Rams with a great quarterback. And I know it's harsh, but
right.
like, I think 13 teams have been to the championship game in the NFC since the Seahawks have. And like, there's only so long that can go on for before that becomes
so you're
thing.
Like, instead of being stuck at 8-8, you're stuck at wild card.
Yeah. But ultimately, we're here to win championships. Like we experienced it once and that was great. And these playoff games, I don't think it's being ungrateful to say that we want a bit more than that now, because Russell Wilson's going to be a long time retired and he might be the best quarterback any of us ever see in Seattle, which is depressing. But as a result, I don't apologize for being demanding when I have it. So I think Stuart and I are probably at the point of, if in this summer there was an amicable departure between head coach and franchise, I would be pretty happy with that, because I know the idea of, well, be careful what you wish for, but what have I got right now? Like, cool. I'll have to start again. But what do you feel is like the general consensus over there amongst you? I know it's a really hard question because it's a lot of opinions, but if you had to kind of group everyone in a Venn diagram or whatever.
You know what? I'm going to say it's split along age most often, in my opinion, with many older fans saying, stay with Carroll. He's done so much for this city. And many younger fans saying, change and adapt and find someone else. I don't think that's a coincidence at all, as I'm sure you guys don't either. And I would equate it to like older Seahawks fans have been through some really, really ugly versions of this team. And I think that they, not only being older and being in a city for longer, are you just more loyal to your team and the people that are there all the time? But I think they also think like, hey, I've seen really bad coaches here, and Pete Carroll's the best one. Like, you want to get rid of him? Be more grateful. And then with younger fans, they obviously look around the league and are more open to change. And I think that they also, in my opinion, are more open sometimes to just different ways to watch football, looking at analytics and stuff like that in a way that makes them more open-minded to those kinds of things. You can make an argument either way. I think Pete Carroll is a fine leader. And I think that he has done a ton for the city, and selfishly, I enjoy the way he interacts with the media. He's very easy to talk to and work with. And not only that, there are a lot of people behind the scenes that are affected with a change at the top. People that we will never meet face to face, that we'll never talk to, but sometimes there's a cleaning house that happens, and people that had nothing to do with this team end up losing their jobs, and it's really tough. That said, I tend to side kind of with that idea that like change your approach with Carroll or move on, because the approach they have right now is kind of being stuck in the mud, and there is a kind of unwillingness to look and take a hard look at the things that they need to change with this program. And if, for instance, changing big issues defensively, I, from the outside, feel like there needs to be some kind of internal pushback and some kind of internal challenge to Pete Carroll to say, this isn't working. And you can't just keep buying in, and you can't just keep believing that it'll change because it's happened before. And I don't know if he doesn't have that guy in the program, but it doesn't sound like he does.
Yeah, I mean, we spent the whole offseason calling for the team. Bobby Wagner seemed to say it pretty publicly as well, to re-sign KJ Wright for a multitude of reasons. And for the first 6 weeks of the season, Bobby and most of the fan base have been proven right, because that is the role he did. The things he did well are the things that one of the things that this defense isn't doing very well at the minute.
Yeah, like the screens and everything. Like he was able to contain the edge in a way where you're like, oh God. Yeah, it's and you know what though? That's kind of telling in itself. Like the fact that, no offense to KJ Wright, he still was really effective in his 30s, but the fact that the fan base has to clamor and argue for a 32-year-old to be re-signed because they don't have anything else and they've had top picks is kind of telling.
Yeah, I mean, Barton was their first pick of the draft like 3 years ago, and it's just, no, like you said, re-sign the 32-year-old who's been here a decade.
Yeah, they've had a lot of misses. I mean, Marquise Blair, who's been banged up a lot, and so that's been tough to figure out. But like Malik McDowell obviously didn't work out. Daryl Taylor, we'll see what he looks like. Same with Jordan Brooks, but you've had a lot of guys, like even if they're 4th and 5th rounders, like a Nas Jones or Lano Hill or Tedrick Thompson, even Shaquille, who was a starter for you for a while, but was never really a shutdown guy and then left after his rookie deal. Like you haven't been able to hit on that side of the ball. And like, I don't think there's a coincidence. Like, or I don't think that, that those two things aren't related, that your struggles defensively are very much related to you just not having great guys or not having guys of the caliber that you did before.
Yeah.
And then the ultimate irony is that I have no basketball analogies in my kind of conversational locker, but I'll give a couple a go.
Try it out.
these like layups that KJ Wright seem to be, that in my opinion, Odell Beckham is a layup. They just don't fancy those, but they'll go for the half court shot of Jamal Adams, which at the minute is proving ultimately like the thing that if Jody Allen was maybe a slightly more proactive owner, might be the reason that an owner would turn around and say, you did that, you've twisted the franchise in knots for 2 years because of this, really, and left us, devoid of money in some capacity, picks in other capacity. Like, someone needs to, carry the can for this decision and probably lose their job for it. And of all the ones, like, Seahawks fans scoff at the Rams the whole time, like Von Miller, second and third round pick. What are they doing? Like, they won't have any picks in 5 years' time. Yeah, but they might make 2 Super Bowls, which is kind of what we're here doing. But then they'll be like, yeah, well, Jamal Adams, great pick. But that whole thing has been quite frustrating because for a number of reasons, like, no one picked any safeties in the first round of the draft, which is like a referendum on positional importance. And some people are saying that Jamal Adams is playing well now, which is, maybe he is, but if this is what $1 million a game gets you, then it definitely wasn't worth it.
Yeah, no, and it's I think a really common critique that I have heard within the building from Jake, my co-host, and from Michael Bumpus, both of whom I really trust their opinion on these things, is that they just don't love the way he's being used. They feel like, for instance, like decisions to blitz him aren't being disguised very effectively, or aren't being used to benefit other players and let them sneak in other players. And I don't know if they're just letting him freelance. I don't know if they're trying to help their pass coverage and they think they have enough up front and they don't need to blitz or they don't need to add guys, but it's not working. Or it's I like pointing to kind of like how useful are these positions. Like, their 2 highest paid players are a linebacker and a safety. If I were to close my eyes and think, okay, it's your team, what are your 2 highest paid defensive players? I'd probably say a shutdown corner and a great edge rusher or a great pass rusher, which is what the Rams have. Yeah, it's something that absolutely needs to change. And it seemed at the time this trade was made like Jamal Adams was a great fit for what Pete Carroll wants to do defensively, but it is hard not to feel, because Jamal Adams is pretty talented, that part of it is the way he's being used. And again, that's when I think it's helpful to have that voice in your program that's like, how about this? How about trying this?
Yeah, it's the Bruce Irvin thing in reverse. They're not putting him in a place where he can produce and be not getting contracts elsewhere. But I didn't mind the Jamal Adams trade. The second first round pick is going to be so annoying. Especially when you see MYJ, Green Arrow, SEA, and like 9th overall at the minute. It's so annoying. Yeah.
Stu, what I'm hearing is that this Carl Potato Smith is not holding Pete Carroll to the account that I was promised.
Potato.
A man called Potato is not holding someone to account. I'm stunned. I'm stunned.
Who was brought back 3 years after being fired. At least the college gridiron team in Seattle are doing all right.
Wow.
That's the best segue I've got. I mean,
are you UW alum?
Yes, unfortunately, it's been rough. And they lost the opener for men's hoops last night. It's just like they might be looking at, not only will both major schools in Washington with football be looking at entering their rivalry game without a head coach that they started the year with, but also like the men's hoops program could be looking at like, how do we buy out Mike Hopkins? Because like this looks like troubles are continuing here. And I
because he came from Syracuse, wasn't it? And like massive like buzz and
yeah. Well, what's weird is like in theory, all of this should have worked out. I don't know about Rolo. I'm not a Coug, and so I don't really know as much about him. But like Jimmy Lake was very highly regarded, one of the best DB coaches in the country, a guy that players really, really liked and responded to. And on paper, that kind of guy can make for a good coach, but the program that he wanted to run just feels so outdated. And I think it's in a way that hurts with recruiting too. With men's hoops, I don't even know how you fix that. I just would love one good program at UW. I would truly love it.
But Jimmy Lake can clearly coach defense because you've got Elijah Molden making plays, Byron Murphy, Joe Tryon, Vita Vea, Buda Baker. And you got like, there's clearly been players come from his learning tree who've gone into made the step, but it's just he's got the keys to the whole shebang and it's gone quite quickly.
It's really more like the decisions he's made. Like it's less you aren't a horrible coach. Your decision to hire John Donovan was a bad decision that like should have been corrected sooner.
And also put that run the damn ball hat on in his first press conference and alienate your entire passing game. And like, what?
Yeah.
We've just moved house and we had our Sky TV fitted on Saturday, and UW Oregon was on Sky. And so I was watching it in bed.
I'm so sorry.
My wife was thrilled that I had it on in bed at 2 a.m. when I was really excited getting in from an Adele concert, watching this game. And I was just watching like aghast at how awful they were at everything.
And then we went to bed and woke up and saw the punt.
Yeah, went to bed at halftime. Then it got worse somehow.
You woke up during the punt?
No. I woke up like
okay.
Like woke up the next day and looked, and Danny O'Neill is losing his shit over.
Oh God, Danny! Did you see Dylan Morris throwing into triple coverage? That was another one I loved. That was a highlight if I've ever seen one. No, it's really ugly play, and they've gotten themselves into a position where they can't do much correcting because you've got Junior Adams as your interim OC, but what do you do? Like, you can't change the playbook. You can't do anything. It's like it was a lost season a while ago, but feels even more so because you don't have the control to right the ship, and you just pray, if you are a UW alum or a fan of the program, that it doesn't affect recruiting next year and the year after, that you can find a way to turn it around and make guys excited about coming here. Because if I was a top flight receiver, I don't know that I'd want to come here.
Yeah, but at least our guy is finally gonna be able to enjoy the Cougs win in a few weeks as well, I think, isn't he?
Let me tell you what, we are in a fantasy football team. We've been on the same fantasy football team together for like 5 years. I can't believe it's been that long. And there is a lot of trash talking that goes into that thread. There's like 10 guys or 10 guys. And it kind of runs the gamut of like someone went to Idaho, a couple of people went to UW, a couple of people went to Wazoo. And I have no responses now. Like, it's gotten to the point where I just kind of, I thumbs down, but I can't really talk trash. Like I don't like not having these resources in the thread.
I said to you, Stu, when you sent me that picture that Tim Booth put up at kickoff of the attendance. And I said to Stu, like, you might as well sack the head coach now, because you can't turn that around. That you're done. And like, that loss to Montana has killed them in so many ways, but you can't turn that around. And then you go and punch a player in the face. Doesn't make it better. That's for sure.
And then say you didn't.
Yeah, that's.
Did he say he didn't?
Yeah, he said he didn't.
He said he separated them. He said I didn't. He was asked. A reporter used the word strike. So like, do you know what went into striking this player? And he said, I didn't strike him. I separated them.
That's his immunized moment. Isn't it?
Yeah, but it's saying before. Are you vaccinated? Yeah, I'm immunized.
Right, talking of that person, Sunday back on the Seahawks, cornerback is an issue, and Davante Adams is healthy, and he's healthy. It's not a nice mix, is it, Stacy?
No, I don't love this matchup for Seattle at all. Now, the thing is, if you're kind of like a glass half full person, as you look back at week 9 at some of the more wild games we saw around the league this year, and every team has a weakness. This is kind of a weird year for the NFL as a whole, where it doesn't feel like one particular team is running away with it in either conference. I think that the Cardinals and then the Packers, obviously going on to win 6 in a row, were the closest to that in the NFC outside of the Bucs. In the AFC, with the Chiefs toppling and the Bills kind of having 2 pretty ugly games, you go with Buffalo, but so you've seen upsets, and you know that in theory it's a game you can win, that there are weaknesses to expose. I have little faith in the run game right now, which I think that they would need to go against this defense just to get not balanced in a 50-50 approach, but like make the defense, try to defend the run a little more often. And right now I would doubt that they're too afraid of it. So I think you're going to have a stellar game from Russell Wilson in his first game back. I agree with you guys earlier. I'm not entirely confident Carson's playing. We'll see, but Pete Carroll did not seem too optimistic about that. yeah, I think it's just going to have to be shocking on Russell Wilson and DK and Tyler to get it done, and hopefully some luck. Hopefully some luck that the Jags had, or that Broncos, any number of teams that upset this weekend.
Yeah, so we need to sign someone called Aaron Rodgers or Jordan Love, and put him on.
Yeah,
put him at linebacker
right.
and just expect him to do everything like Josh Allen did. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, to square the circle from earlier, like the fact that it is so much parity in the NFC is yet another reason why, like, just go and sign someone that can make you a
it's
bit
anyone's
better.
game still.
Like, maybe do something. But yeah, I mean, I think I'm fairly well on record to say that I despise every single thing about the Green Bay Packers, most notably their self-righteous nonsense fan base, that it would just be terrific to go up there and having not been invested in this season at all, Green Bay is a game that will get me going because they are just vile in every way, and I just want to beat them so badly.
Is that the fan base you hate the most?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because
in the NFL.
Well, in the NFL, I mean, obviously there are subhumans in North London that I don't even acknowledge as part of the human race. But they're I hate them the most because they're the most similar to who I really hate, in that sort of we're so special, we're a different breed, we've done this and we've just vile rubbish.
Aaron Nagler, basically.
Fascinating.
Yeah, Cheesehead TV. I mean, just in the mud is where I want them all day on Sunday. Like if we beat them, I won't watch a single thing of the Seahawks. I'll just watch every bit of their fan reaction and just drink it.
That's what I did Saturday. I got in from the pub, waiting for my mates. Instead of watching Match of the Day, I found who did we play? Bristol City fan reaction videos and just watched that happen from the away end. It's the best. It's the best thing to do.
Aaron Rodgers can drink clay and I'll drink those fan reactions and it'll be great.
Do you ever go into like a fan? I don't know what you guys look at, but they have like an SB Nation fan blog, and I'll go look at like the opposing team once in a while, especially the live game feed, and you can see fans writing their own reactions, and it's just this sick satisfaction you get seeing them early be like, this team is trash, and then later on they're like, what's happening?
Like the best one of that was
Chef's Kiss.
Was the best was the Jags one. I don't know what it's called, the SB Nation one, where they posted the game wrap midway through the third quarter. I mean, that's just the best when they played us a few weeks ago. But I'm not that confident for Sunday, Adam, despite all that. As much as I want you to enjoy your Sunday night.
No, I think if I had to make a pick, I'd probably say 28-17 Green Bay, unfortunately. And it breaks my heart to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stacey,
you gonna pick it? Are you allowed to pick it?
I am. I'm gonna go Green Bay on this one. Man, how much do I want to go?
how much?
I think there's a chance the defense allows over 30.
Yeah,
I hope that's not the case, but like I hope that some of the defensive improvements are real. But I'm gonna go over 30, like I don't know, 34, 32 for Green Bay, maybe 21 for Seattle. I would say a 10-point difference.
Yeah, and then the conversation probably changes a little bit if the Seahawks do lose on Sunday, because the window for this season for the playoffs closes that little bit more with another NFC road loss. So we had the Vikings, the Saints at home, and the Packers is not good.
No, especially with the Cardinals coming into town the week after.
Yeah, and we don't know if Kyler Murray will play yet. I would probably anticipate he would, but we know he's probably not going this weekend. So it's like, there's always a chance he couldn't. How amazing would it be to get Jordan Love and then not Kyler Murray the following week? I'm like not ready to admit that there isn't a chance, even though when you think of the math, like, okay, they can afford 2 more losses, let's say. And then you look at the schedule and you go, oh, I could find 4. Like, like you're not ready to admit it yet. Cause oh man, I've never covered a team that's been out of it this early. So it's weird for me just from a coverage standpoint.
Yeah. I mean,
when we're there for that Niners game, I just want there to be like a Jim Carrey. So you're telling me there's a chance, like, at least let's go, let's go to the game. Like, let's not fly 5,000 miles for, obviously we're going for a lot more reasons than just one game, but let's make the game matter in some capacity.
And prime time preferably, so it's like a 3-hour extra drinking
tailgate
time
beforehand. That'd be handy.
Nice.
Anything else? Spin? Adam?
Let's bin it.
I'll go. I just remembered who I was going to put in. Last time, Stacy, you were on our show. Adam put your co-host in the bin for ignoring him on social media. I'm going to put him in the bin for exactly the same reason, because I messaged Jake. A month ago, and I'm yet to receive a reply. So he's 2 for 2. He's got the full house of ignoring the ped pod. So your co-host is
in the mud,
further entrenched in the bin.
Shame on him. Shame on him. Do I put something in the bin?
Go for it.
Yeah.
Someone? I'm going to go, oh man, I'll go Jimmy Lake on this one. It was just such an ugly game. And he might actually be like I don't know that he's going to coach another game with UW, but this feels like as close to rock bottom as you can get for this program. And I was there for 2008, and that is saying something.
Well, I have 3, Stu.
Okay.
We've never.
I mean, I've got another one. I'll Adam Schefter, but that's.
Oh no! Hold on, Stuart. We don't normally take bin requests. Okay. I was on the phone to Mike Dugar today, and he said, "Are you doing a show tonight? Can you please put Adam Schefter in the bin for his stuff about Dalvin Cook? Because
absolutely,
that is one of the most disgraceful tweets I've ever seen from like a person in a position of influence with 9 million followers on like that is for those that don't know what's going on. Dalvin Cook is embroiled in what looks like a pretty horrific domestic violence case against his girlfriend. Mm-hmm. And Schefter tweeted out last night that Dalvin Cook was the victim of domestic violence, and then like per his agent at the bottom,
and extortion.
Mm-hmm.
And there needs to be a serious conversation about some of these influencers, insiders in the NFL now, because like, look, when they have the shield in their badge, like Ian Rappaport, I just ignore anything he says, because it's clearly coming from, if your paycheck is from the NFL, you have no interest in what you say about the NFL, because it's obviously going to be skewed one way or the other. But, you know, and Adam Schefter is obviously paid by the same guys, if not directly, but we have to expect better, especially in cases that are so important, that you're not in the bag for these players and the agents, so that you can get a scoop on where their next transfer is going to be. I was stunned, Stacy.
Well, it was so insidious about it is Adam Schefter knows better. Like, I feel like he went to broadcasting school. Like, he knows how to be a journalist. It's just, and I was talking to this about this with someone, and the coworker I was talking to was like, well, but he's not a journalist. I don't think he considers himself like a journalist. And I was like, well, it's not about what he thinks he is. It's about the perspective other people have of him. Like, that's where the danger is from. If Adam Schefter wants to say, I'm not a reporter, I'm an insider, like I just get nuggets, fine. Other people, millions of other people, view you as a source of truth and as like the saying on something. So you need to recognize that, even if you don't want that responsibility, it's too late. You have it. It was such a gross way to ignore like any kind of journalism ethics from someone who knows them, in my opinion. I hated it.
It also comes 3 weeks after he was in the Bruce Allen inbox.
Right.
Basically just like carrying water for him. So yeah, it's been since he broke the Aaron Rodgers thing in the draft, it's been a descent for Adam Schefter.
Got two more, Stu. I mean, Dan Orlovsky wrote an all-time weird article a couple of days ago, and I
didn't see this.
We'll have to send that to you, Stacey. I mean, I think he's tried to come across as like, so basically the premise of the article is kind of how to control your urges as a Christian male when you're on the road at work. And it just came across as all-time horny creep article, especially when he said he's learned never to be in a one-on-one situation with a woman at any stage, which does not seem like a particularly healthy way to live your life. I mean, yeah. Obviously his wife not included, but I think he even said that John Kittner taught me to never be involved in a one-on-one situation with a woman, which, you know, cool. But yeah, so that's a bin for an all-time
all
weird
these
article.
Women out here.
Yeah, I mean, they're just throwing themselves at the old Detroit Lions backup quarterback. I mean, how could anyone resist? And my third one is guest related. I think Love Island is done, Stace.
I wish I could have slammed my phone down. You mean Love Island is in the bin for you, or Love Island is done as a series?
I think maybe one and the same. I thought the last season they stretched it, and I think that people have become too self-aware of like the situation they're in and too aware of the cameras, and all we were waiting for was Casa Amor in the last season. And I hate to say it because I'm a Love Island stan. Like, I mean, Stuart is so disgusted with me right now to even bring this to the podcast.
I felt like the Millie Liam drama was real. That was not them putting on. What was her name? Lucy.
Mm-hmm.
She was definitely someone aware that she was on camera projecting an image, but
Hugo was at it the whole time.
Exactly right. I felt like it. You know what? Do you watch the American version?
No.
Okay. In the American version of Love Island, that is so much more obvious that in comparison, the UK version is like completely natural. Like, do they even know cameras are here? Because the US version is like, please watch it. The most recent US season, it's painfully obvious that they are putting on and creating a narrative. And like, it's one of the main couples. You're like, I don't believe that this is real. How is anyone loving this? I don't understand. And I am comparing it to that. So we watched them at the same time and we were like, the UK version is so much better. It's not even close.
They also made me watch Faye for 12 weeks, which I just, after Anna Vakili, I think she's the second worst Love Island character of all time.
Yeah. Poor Teddy, man. Teddy didn't deserve that. He was treated horribly.
Yeah, it was an outrage. It was an outrage. Okay, well, we just lost any listener that we ever may have had, and I think all of our patrons have just cancelled their subscription. So to get
isn't the US version of Love Island Below Deck? Because I've watched an episode of that.
No, I haven't seen Below Deck. Everyone tells me to watch Below Deck, and I don't, and I don't know why, because I consume an unhealthy amount of reality television.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, those were a lot of names, and maybe that's what our parents think when they listen to our interviews on them. Like, what are they talking about?
Yeah, it's about Love Island, obviously.
Yeah.
Any food takes in the last 12 months that you've changed your opinion last year? Because that's obviously a crucial part.
Yeah, that I've changed my opinion on. I did get a lot of flack from Curtis and Jake for saying that bundt cakes were like a top 5. It's probably not top 5, but certainly a top 10 dessert. And
what is bundt cake?
It's like a very dense cupcake. And I said that brownies were not top 5. No way top 5. And that was controversial for some reason. I don't understand why, because they're all desserts. They're all delicious. I don't think my food takes are that bad. I think that they are fine. And I think that, some other people aren't willing to open their mind a little bit. I said I like soupy mac and cheese. That was totally fine.
I'm okay with that.
I can't stand mac and cheese.
That's weird.
Can't stand mac and cheese.
So
or roast potatoes.
Well, Stuart, you need to hand in your passport. Start again, because that's not acceptable.
No, I went for a roast dinner with a family a few weeks ago and forgot to ask them to take it off, and I tried. Nah.
Although I do always change roast potatoes for chips at a pub. French fries, not crisps.
Okay.
Because I do feel like the ceiling, the floor on French fries is much higher than the floor on roast potatoes, which can be rubbish sometimes.
The floor on French fries, I don't know if there's a higher floor on French fries or pizza, but for both products, it's pretty high.
Yeah, it's true. Even people say, "Oh, Domino's is awful." Yeah, but it's sensationally awful. Like, it's the best thing in the world.
Yeah, I'll complain about it and then eat the entire thing.
It's still 11.
I'll be halfway through. Like, this is trash. Who ordered this?
I cook professionally, and I can only aspire to cook anything ever as nice as anything that Domino's make.
Yeah.
It's good when you feel sick, like where you're like, I think this is messing with like my body, and like I don't know if my sodium levels are just at really unhealthy rates, but that's when it's really good.
Yeah, when it dramatically alters your entire pH system of your body, you're in it properly.
Your heart starts racing.
100%. And so where does Stuart and I need to go at some point in our little week trip, first week of December?
Wow. Okay. So, what are you guys most excited to see?
Uh,
So I get a direction.
everything
of
apart
where-
from 1 to half 4 on the Sunday.
Yeah, pretty much.
Fair. Let's see. Where are you guys staying?
West Seattle.
And I'm in Redmond.
West Seattle. Okay, so you guys can pretty much go anywhere. Wow, those are far. Let's see. Oh God, I mean, you have to go to the Space Needle. I've done it like once since I've been here, but I feel like you have to. There is
We want dive bar food takes right now. We
Yeah.
don't want like Jimi Hendrix,
like really
music.
abstract.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. There's a place in Renton, and
Mhm.
it's called Chuck's Donuts. Do you guys like donuts?
I mean, yeah.
Obviously. I've lived in Washington State my whole life, and it is the best donut I've ever had. Donuts are one of my favorite foods, so I get them all the time. It is the best donut I've ever had in my life. And I'll tell you why. It's because they're very light and airy, but they make their own frosting and frost them like it's a cake. So it's
Mhm.
not like this icing glaze. So Chuck's Donuts. And Katie, where's Chuck's Donuts? Cemetery Road in Renton.
Okay.
It's
Google Maps.
amazing.
Google
So-
Maps.
Don't mind while I just yelled.
The best sandwich I've had in Seattle was at the 5 Point Cafe in downtown. It was just
My friend works there.
the greasiest tuna melt or Reuben. I can't remember which one I had.
Yeah.
Oh, it's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Let me tell you guys. Are you guys a fan of fish and chips? I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Without
I
going
know,
down the
just-
all-time stereotype, we'll say yes.
Dumb question. There is a place, I'll message it to you guys. There is a place in Fremont that is also the best fish and chips place I've been to. And that one, I think it wasn't like an Anthony Bourdain stop, but that's one that's like a well-known, it's a place you would pass a million times and not know you passed it, but then like famous people have been there, which is weird. So it's I'll send you guys that, but there's a fish and chips place in between Fremont and Wallingford, right down on 34th Street, and it is phenomenal.
Perfect.
Cool. So that's the rest of our week filled up, Adam.
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
said it all.
20
Done.
days to go. 20 days to go. One more in the bin. Frank Gore is fighting on the Logan Paul undercard, and that's just depressing. Why? You've been in the NFL for 15 years. Why do you need more money to do that? Why?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not great.
I don't know.
No.
Maybe it's something he always wanted to do, and so figured like, oh, why not?
Yeah, but
Try
he's not even fighting anyone of like note. He's just fighting some random
It's an NBA player, isn't he?
Just a
I think
dude.
so. Just some guy.
Yeah.
I mean, the way it's going, it might be one of the Jokic brothers, if what they carry on what they're doing. God, it's amazing.
God, you know what? Let's put the Jokic brothers in the bin. That Twitter account they created, I can't tell if I love it or I think it's like a crime. Like it's one or the other. But the Jokic brothers having, first of all, a combined account, like a couple account with no picture, is wild.
Yeah.
What do they put in like the basketball Gatorade? Because it seems like every one of them is a complete Fruit Loop.
I don't know. NBA Twitter is just a great place to be. That's all I'll say about it. It's just the drama is peak. It's not like that anywhere else.
Yeah, it's all year round. It's just absolute carnage. So I'm not at the periphery of it because a few of my mates are big into it. But yeah, Stacy, where can people catch you? This site on your socials, and obviously people who listen in America, where can they catch you?
So you can
in the
hear
week?
us. You'll probably have to listen to the podcast, but the Jake and Stacy podcast is just the version of our show that's on 710 ESPN from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific. And then at Stacy Rost is my Twitter account.
Cool.
Actually, speaking of basketball and Stacey, you're doing post-game shows at the stadium wearing Shaquille O'Neal's trousers last time I saw with G. Scott. No?
Those ones were with Jake. So I do Seahawks pregame with G. Scott, and then we film with Chris Francis of a local Cairo station here in Seattle. We film like game previews. So we film them on Thursday and they air on Saturday. And it's one of those things where you ever go back and look at a picture of yourself and you're like, why didn't anyone stop me?
Every day.
That was one of those things. It was just bad.
Also, talking to G. Scott, that's another of your co-hosts who I really want to get on this pod because I somehow have him on Facebook, and he is a storyteller and a man who has lived and lives one hell of a life.
Yeah, he is a blast. He's such a good dude, and he has such a crazy story. And still, his story, I think you guys will love talking to him because he still gets some hate from it. Uh, I think for people who want to judge the way that he got into the industry, but I think it's one of the cooler stories I've ever heard of anyone's path to the NFL.
Yeah. And also, he had one of my favorite replies on Twitter when someone asked him if his son was going to commit to Washington and Chris Peterson, and he posted a gift of a ship sailing away, which is just the best. And he did. He went to Ohio State. He's now a tight end, I think, as well. And
yeah, he's switched to tight end.
Yeah, as always, Stacy, massively appreciate you taking the time to speak to me and Adam. People listening, patreon.com/The Pedestrian Podcast, Spotify, Podbean, iTunes, all the usual means and methods. Enjoy the game on Sunday. Until next time, this has been the Pedestrian Podcast.
Go Hawks.
Cool.
All right.